Hare Krishna, good morning. Today we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, entitled Cosmic Manifestation. And we are on chapter 8, questioned by King Parikshit, on text 1. Raja Uvacha Vamana Shodita Vaman Guna Akyane Agunasya Cha Yasmat Yasmai Yata Praha Narada Devadarshana Rajavacha Brahmana Chodito Brahman Gunakyane Gunasya Cham Yasman Yata Praha Narado Devadarshanaha Rajovacha Vamana Chodito Brahman Gunakyane Gunasya Cham Yasma Yata Praha Narado Devadarshanaha Rajovacha Vamana Chodito Brahman Gunakyane Gunasya Cham Yasma Yata Praha Narado Devadarshanaha Rajovacha Vamana Chodito Brahman Gunakyane Gunasya Cham Yasma Yata Praha Narado Devadarshanaha Rajavacha Brahmana Chodito Brahman Gunakyane Gunasya Cham Yasma Yata Praha Narado Devadarshanaha. Someone online would like to chant?
Rajavacha Brahmana Chodito Brahman Gunakye Gunasya Cha
Gunakyane Gunasya Cha
Yasma Yata Praha
Yasma Yata Praha
Narado Devadarshana
Anyone else?
Rajavacha
Brahmano Chodito Brahman
Gunakyane Gunasya Cha Yasma Yata Praha Narado Devadarshana
Raja,
Raja,
the king,
the king,
Uvacha,
Vacha,
inquired, Brahmana,
Brahmana,
the Lord Brahma,
the Lord Brahma,
Chodita,
Chodita,
being instructed,
being instructed,
Brahman,
Brahman,
all learned Brahmana,
Brahmana,
Sukadev Goswami,
Sukadeva Goswami,
Guna Akyane,
Akyane,
in narrating the transcendental qualities,
narrating the transcendental qualities,
Agunasya,
Agunasya,
of the Lord who is without material qualities,
of the Lord who is without material qualities,
Cha,
Cha,
and
and
Yasma, Yasman,
Yasma, Yasma,
and whom,
and whom,
Yata,
Yasa,
as much
as much as
Praha,
Praha,
explained,
explained,
Narada,
Narada,
Narada Muni,
Narada Muni,
Deva Darshana,
Devadarshana,
one whose audience is as good as that of any demigod.
one whose audience is good as any demigod.
Translation. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Devarshi Narada was directly instructed by Brahmaji, who was also directly instructed by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the instruction imparted by Narada to his various disciples are as good as those of the Supreme Lord. That is the way of understanding Vedic knowledge. It's come down from the laws by disciplic succession, and this transcendental knowledge is distributed to the world by this descending process. There is no chance, however, to receive the Vedic knowledge from mental speculators. Therefore, wherever Narada Muni goes, he represents himself as authorized by the Lord, and his appearance is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, this disciplic succession which strictly follows the transcendental instruction is the bona fide chain of disciplic succession. And the test of such a bona fide spiritual masters is that there should be no difference between the instruction of the Lord originally imparted to his devotee and that which is imparted by the authority in the line of disciplic succession. How Narada distributed the transcendental knowledge of the Lord will be explained in later cantos. It will appear also that the Lord existed prior to the material creation, and therefore his transcendental name, quality, etc., do not represent any material quality. Whenever, therefore, the Lord is described as aguna, or without any quality, it does not mean that he has no quality, but that he has no material quality, such as the modes of goodness, passion, or ignorance, as the conditioned souls have. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, and thus is described as aguna. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyanachala Shalakaya Shakshud Militan Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupam Kadamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shigu Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagajantam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvasesha Shunyavadi Askachade Jatarine. So we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 1, and it's the start of the question by King Parikshit. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before who did he speak? So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, we're reading about Brahma. So, what's happening here is when Krishna left the planet, there was a big gathering on in Naimisharanya of sages who did sacrifice for 1,000 years, and the sages, they are very advanced. They know a lot. They have done austerity, sacrifice. They have studied the Veda, and the sages, they have chosen to have Sutta Goswami speaking to them, and and Sutta Goswami is speaking based on a question from the sages. So the sages are asking question, and Sutta Goswami is responding to the question. And at the beginning of the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, it's explained that Munayo sadhu pristoham bhavadbir loka mangalam yatkrita Krishna samprasta yatma suprasidati. That Sutta Goswami is saying to the sage, your question are very worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna, and as such they are really relevant to the world welfare, and only such question has the power to fully satisfy, completely satisfying the self. And I was thinking this morning, last night we had a reading of Beyond Birth and Death with a group of ladies, and one of them was asking a lot of questions. So I felt it was very relishable because of the question asked, then there is a churning of transcendental knowledge happening, and question relating to Krishna, to spiritual life, to self-realization are the driver of our spiritual life. Is the driver of the spiritual life for the inquirer, for those who inquire, and is the driver of spiritual life for those responding to the question. So in that verse, Srila Prabhupada Munayo Sadhu Kristoham has spoken Sutta Goswami when he was just responding to the sages. Srila Prabhupada said that everyone is asking questions. We're always asking questions. And if you remember the beginning of day 4 in the in the Advanced course, like Dear Govinda, he speak about that. And now we are always asking questions. Like even the trees are asking questions, and the plants are asking questions, and animals are asking questions, and their question usually pertain to the situation of in the material world, like the 4 principle of the driver of material life is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So those questions are asked by animals and plants, and also by human being. Where is food? Where is a place to sleep? Where is a good mate? And how can I protect myself? You know, so all that are questions that are asked by animals as well as human beings. And what differentiates animals from human beings is that we have the power to inquire about transcendental matter. We have the power to inquire about who am I? What's the purpose of human life? What am I supposed to do? What is this? What's the responsibility of someone who is about to die? So that's the boon of human life. And we can see that the complete progress of human life is comprised in those ability to ask question. Kamasya nendriya priti loba jivata yavata jivasya tadva vigyasa nartayasya chya karmabi. So life desire, Sutta Goswami says also, life desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should only desire a healthy life. We want to take care of our basic need, eating, sleeping, and defending to the survival level. And our self-preservation. And he said, because the goal of human life is to inquire about the absolute truth. And he said, nothing else, nothing else is the goal of one's work. So all occupation, earlier, Sutta Goswami said, all occupational activity are met for ultimate liberation. So whatever we do, we do it for that. And what is the driver of that spiritual understanding, ultimate liberation, ultimate purpose of all our work goes through inquiry. And so yesterday in that discussion, we made a point about the distinction between spiritual consciousness and material consciousness. And specifically, we are looking at old age. And now in old age, if we look at old age from the perspective of material consciousness, it's a curse. It's a complete curse. When we become old, we cannot do the things that we were doing when we were younger. We cannot eat the same type of food. The sex drive go down. So many things go down. And then it's like in material consciousness, old age become a real curse. Versus in spiritual consciousness, then old age become an asset. Old age become a blessing because the senses are subdued. There is less need to maintain the body. The body kind of, Prabhupada said, like when you're young, you can never eat too much, and when you're older, you can never eat too little. So in fact, the need of the body are so reduced that one can really focus on spiritual life in old age, and that's a blessing, that's a boon, that's an asset of old age. Also in spiritual community, spiritual society, old people are also an asset. They are considered the wise in any real culture that's made for advancement in spiritual life. then the people are the edge, they become the asset of the society, the asset of the village, the asset of the family, because they have the wisdom of maturity and old age. Even like Sukta Goswami, responding to the sage, is in maturity. Vyasadeva is said to have spoken the Bhagavatam in his maturity. So there is something very beautiful about the maturity of aging, and the maturity of aging is an asset. So we can see the polarity between material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. In material consciousness, something like old age is a curse. In spiritual consciousness, something like old age is a blessing. So similarly, we can look at inquiry in the same way. So in material consciousness, what I often observe within myself and others is that inquiry is a proof that I'm stupid. Inquiry is a proof that I don't know anything. Inquiry is going to challenge me. Inquiry is going to expose me as inadequate, and on and on and on. So we can see that often people, they are hesitant to inquire. However, spiritual life starts with inquiry and continue with inquiry. So we can, we have here Maharaj Parikshit, who was saved by the Lord and who saw Lord Vishnu eye to eyes when he was in the womb of his mother. So Maharaj Parikshit is a pure devotee of the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit, in a sense, he doesn't have any reason to inquire from the material consciousness point of view. Like he knows it all. And still, Maharaj Parikshit is going to be so instrumental to create that the manifestation of transcendental knowledge, in the same way that Arjuna is so instrumental in creating the manifestation of transcendental knowledge. And similarly, the sage of Naimisharanya, who in a sense, in that purport from the second chapter of Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's kind of hint that there is no difference between the speaker and the listener. And here also he stressed like the audience. The audience is there is a dance, there is a churning, there is a dynamic between the hearers and the speaker. And without the hearer, the speaker is not speaking full transcendental knowledge, and vice versa. Without the speaker, full transcendental knowledge is not spoken. And to really, in spiritual life, we are called upon from the teaching of the Bhagavatam, from the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, to really understand the value of Atato Brahma Jigyasa, to inquire about the nature of the absolute truth. And through those inquiry, through being a spirit of discovery, through our openness to inquire, to really ask questions, then we get to receive responses. And it's not about question answer. It's not about I didn't know and now I know. Because I don't know and I know, it's kind of the same thing. It's very close-ended way of approaching life. And spiritual life is not going to be ever close-ended. Spiritual life is Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam, is always expanding, always expanding. So those questions, they are always expanding the nectar of transcendental knowledge. So here, what's happened is, I will read the 3 last verses from Brahma speaking to Narada, his son. So he says, O Narada, the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself. So Lord Brahma, he just spoke to Narada and he said, expand this knowledge yourself. And then he continued, please describe the science of Godhead with determination and in a matter by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Hari, the super soul of every living being, and the summum bonum source of all energies. The Lord's activities in association with his different energy should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teaching of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. So Sukadev Goswami, he was answering the question of Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit's question were like, he wanted to hear about the creation, and he wanted to hear about the different activities of the Lord and the different incarnations of the Lord. So Sukadev Goswami, he responded by saying, well, you know, I can respond, but really what I know is that Narada Muni asked the same question to his father, Brahma. And that's how Sukadev Goswami, he was speaking about Narada inquiring from Brahma, and then maybe he took a breath. Yeah, at that time, he went to explaining the Purushoktas, the different incarnations of the Lord, and then he completed his narration of that dialogue by saying, Narada, I have given you what I received from the Lord, and so Sukadev Goswami narrating the dialogue between Brahma and Narada. He completes that by saying that Brahma was saying to Narada, I have given you everything the Lord gave me, and in summary, and now expand it, speak it out. And so thus, by understanding that, you know, like if it's done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. Then probably Sukadev Goswami completed his narration of that dialogue, and thus we understand that Sukadev Goswami, he heard a lot, and he doesn't think, oh, I know everything now. The more he's hearing, the more question he has. Because as we hear about Krishna consciousness, as we hear transcendental knowledge, the more question we are going to have. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, like, in material consciousness, maybe they can publish one newspaper a day. But in spiritual consciousness, we can publish a full newspaper every minute, because there's so much going on, because it's unlimited knowledge. Even Krishna, who is expanding constantly, he doesn't completely know about himself. So what to speak about us? So Sukadev Goswami heard a lot. And what's happened after hearing so much, probably maybe, you know, for hours and hours, Maharaj Parikshit hearing from Sukadev Goswami for hours and hours. And what's happened to him is like he has more questions. He started with a question and now we have more questions. So we can look at how that ability to question is going to help us make progress in spiritual life. And where do we inquire? We inquire from someone who can give us responses that are equal to the responses we will get from the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada speak about the descending knowledge. Descending knowledge is that meeting Narada is non different than meeting Brahma. And meeting Brahma is non different than meeting the Lord himself. So Srila Prabhupada said we want to understand that the way of receiving transcendental knowledge is through descending knowledge, through a bona fide disciplic succession. And for us, we are receiving right now bona fide knowledge. Right now we have Srila Prabhupada speaking to us here, Len Cohen, and Sarah and Charlene and Gajendra, Nandini, Dear Govinda, Ramachandra, Malini, Devi, Dasi. So we have Srila Prabhupada speaking to us. Transcendental knowledge directly, we receive directly from Srila Prabhupada here. And he's narrating the dialogue, he's narrating really the question of the sages who are narrating the dialogue between Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, and who just ended Sukadev Goswami narrating the dialogue between Narada and Lord Brahma. So for us, when we hear the Bhagavatam, when we hear Srila Prabhupada's purport and translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, his choices of words as is translated, every word is translated for us to join with us, then it's non-different than hearing from Krishna. It's Shakshat Daritvena Shamashta Shastra Kintu Prabhu Ya Priya Evatasya Vandego Shri Chana Vindam. So that verse from Guru Astakam is that, yeah, the spiritual master is glorified in all the Vedas. All the scriptures glorify the spiritual master, and that the spiritual master is very dear, and because he's non-different than Krishna. Is non-different than Krishna. So we want to see the spiritual master as non-different than Krishna. And there is a line of disciplic succession. If you want to become familiar with it, it's at the end of the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There is also a song written by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And this morning I was taking a few minutes to prepare for this class this morning during Japa period. And one thing I did, I read the line, the 32. And my daughter, when she was in primary school, she will constantly recite the 32. She learned it at school, and she will go around the house. She will say, Krishna, Brahma, Nada, Vyasa, Madhva, and then she will go on, and she will go again and again, and she just go around the house, chanting the Parampara, the disciplic succession, the name of all of them. I don't know them by heart. She knew them, and as I was looking at that list, I came upon thinking of the significance of the number 32. There's 32 there, and the significance, like 32 is 2 times 16, and it's such an auspicious. Every multiple of 16 or divider of 108. It's an auspicious number. So it's such an auspicious number. And then we get to hear from Srila Prabhupada constantly receiving transcendental knowledge through his books, through his lecture. We receive transcendental knowledge, through Srila Prabhupada, through his presence. I know, and some things that I've developed from the start of my spiritual life is to inquire directly from Srila Prabhupada. Because spiritual life is about inquiry and receiving responses. And encourage you all to practice that, to have inquiry, because our spiritual life is driven by our doubts and inquiry. And as we allow the doubt to come to the surface, as we allow ourselves to inquire submissively, then our spiritual life get to grow, get to expand, get to move forward. So a practice that I have practiced from practically the first week of my introduction with Krishna consciousness, my practice, when I came to Krishna consciousness, it was kind of quick. Like I came to Krishna consciousness, I came to the temple. The next day I came to Mangalarti and chanted for 2 hours during Japa period. And that's it. That was it. That was it. I stayed. I liked it. I stayed. I continued to chant. And somehow I chanted just next to Srila Prabhupada's Murti in Montreal. And I could feel his presence, and I could feel Srila Prabhupada was kind of doing something to my heart that I decided to stay. And I had a good life. I was traveling around the world. I was having fun. I was meeting new people all the time. I was playing music in the street. Life was good. I didn't have any problem, really. I didn't have any responsibility either. It was pretty good. And I know that at those 2 hours I spent chanting Hare Krishna at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada's Murti in Montreal, which is the most beautiful, incredible Murti, that Prabhupada did something too much. He came to my heart. Read it Prokasito, we say to Prabhupada every day. So he infused something in my heart that kind of turn off that life of traveling, that life of adventure, that life of intoxication, that life of intoxicating life. It turned it off. And okay, I'm good here. I'm staying here. And so from the beginning, somehow, I was guided to develop these habits. I got in contact with senior devotees that were in contact with Srila Prabhupada, like, one of his first woman disciple, Jadurani. And she told me, go and ask questions to Prabhupada. So I did, because I was submissive. I said, okay, I want to do it 100%, so I'm going to do whatever I'm told to do. And I did. I went to Prabhupada and asked questions. And Prabhupada responded to all of them in different ways. Sometimes he will respond by someone speaking. Sometimes he will respond because I will open a book. And it's still like that when I have questions, I open a book, even the books that I'm reading, even the page where I should have read anyway, and the response is right there. Whatever is happening for me, I found it right there. So again, what I'm stressing here is a value and importance in spiritual life to learn the art of inquiring with our hearts submissively, allowing ourselves to be in that place of spirit of discovery, the spirit of wonder, like, oh, I wonder how it works. I wonder how I transform my consciousness. I wonder how I understand this dialogue. Like constantly be in that place of being ready to be a recipient of transcendental knowledge. That's qualification is Tadvini Pranipalina Paripashina Sevaya Upadekshante Tegyanam Gyanina Darshana. By submissive inquiry, the one who has seen the truth is going to impart knowledge in our heart. That's very simple. That's very simple. By inquiry, and those inquiry are not within the bound of material existence. If they were within the bound of material existence, then they were not transcendental knowledge. So those inquiry are not in the bound of any material consideration. So it doesn't even need to be spoken out necessarily. It's not limited by any bound because it's transcendental knowledge. So Prabhupada gave a few analogy about how to receive from the disciplic succession and how important it is to receive from the disciplic succession, because there is many teachers. I see people who follow teachers, and I see people who even follow teachers who have learned from the Veda. However, whatever they have understood from the Veda was all from their own mental speculation, all interpretation coming from their own conditioning, material conditioning. And without the help of someone who has seen the truth, without the help of someone who is choosing to guide us, like Srila Prabhupada have chosen these people, we are Westerners, and you have chosen to guide us. Without the guidance of a spiritual master coming within the disciplic succession, then we are not going to make a lot of progress. We're just also going to be eternally speculating about the absolute truth. And it's unfortunate when people are in contact with teacher like that, because it leads them also to things that they know, because the teacher thinks they know, and it leads them to things that they know too. And then spiritual life become really difficult because there is so much unlearning that need to be done. And then in that way, when we found the proper spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession, that Srila Prabhupada said, then it's non-different than receiving from Krishna. It is said that receiving transcendental knowledge in the disciplic succession is kind of receiving a fruit that have been handed over very delicately from one hand to another, down to us. And that fruit, it becomes more and more relishable every time it's handing over to one hand and giving to the next hand in succession, then then it becomes more and more tasty, relishable. Sukha means a parrot, and it says that Sukadev Goswami, like the knowledge he gave to Parikshit Maharaj, was even more sweet and nectarian than the knowledge that was given to him by his father, Vyasadeva, who is Krishna himself. And so in that disciplic succession, we can, okay, what is a bona fide disciplic succession? Srila Prabhupada gives the example of post office. That's one example very early on in my spiritual life that was given to me, and it impacted me. Like if I write a letter, of course, post office is less and less used for letters. People prefer other means of communication. Yesterday, a young lady said, "Oh, writing emails, it's too much. I need to sit down and I need to think. You know, I'm not going to write emails too much. Can I just text you? Because it's so much easier." So what to speak about writing a letter on paper, put it in an envelope with a stamp and inside the mailbox. So Prabhupada, you know, at the time he was speaking, he didn't know about email, or maybe he knew, but it wasn't manifested yet. And he said that, yes, so when we write a letter, imagine like the speculative attitude will be like, I write a letter and I put it in an envelope, but I don't need anything else in an envelope. And I choose a box and I put the letter in a box. And that's how the person is going to receive knowledge. But then there is nothing to receive there. The letter will never arrive anywhere because it's not a bona fide recipient, because the postman is never going to know to pick up that letter. And the bona fide system is the post office. The post office tell us, okay, you take your letter, you put it in an envelope, you need a stamp. You need to qualify your letter with a stamp. And when you have a stamp, you put it in a mailbox that's authorized, completely 100% authorized by the post office. And when you put your letter in a mailbox that's completely authorized by the post office, then your letter will arrive to its destination. And the person is going to receive knowledge like that. So that's one example. Two examples, the mangoes going down the trees, the mailbox, and understanding that if we want to accept a spiritual master, then that spiritual master need to be authorized by the disciplic succession, need to be authorized by acharyas, need to be authorized by Krishna. And making sure that, is it really authorized? Is there an authorization somewhere? What kind of stamp do I need to put? What is the stamp that qualified me? That stamp. So here we are very lucky because we are receiving transcendental knowledge from Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is authorized by the disciplic succession, is authorized by his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, coming back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gorkeshwar Das Babaji, Jagannath Das Babaji, and all of them kind of in some way or another, they could foresee the captain that's going to come, Srila Prabhupada, to serve the entire world. Prabhupada says his books are the law books for the next 10,000 years. So to take shelter of the law books of Srila Prabhupada, we are taking full shelter of the disciplic succession. And in those books, by reading those books, by hearing from Srila Prabhupada, it's like hearing directly from Krishna in the disciplic succession. And then Srila Prabhupada give an example of speculative approach to the Veda. In the Veda, in Ishopanishad, God, Krishna, is described as nirguna or aguna, having no qualities. And people who are not in the disciplic succession coming from Lord Krishna, they misinterpret that, meaning that God has no qualities. He has no qualities. So because he has no qualities, he must be impersonal. He doesn't have qualities. He doesn't have eyes. He doesn't have a character. He doesn't have anything that we know according to our conditioning under the three modes of material nature. So when the Vedas say aguna or nirguna, that must mean that it doesn't have any personality. That's a conclusion, because they are not guided in a bona fide spiritual disciplic succession. They come to that conclusion by mental speculation about what means aguna or nirguna. But aguna and nirguna means that it doesn't have any material quality. Krishna doesn't have any material quality. Aguna means no material qualities. And the point that Srila Prabhupada is making is purport that the Lord is at the origin of all the Purushas. He is at the origin of the creation, the material creation, the three modes of material nature. How can he be under his own creation? And so all under the material qualities. And so Prabhupada makes a point that we understand that Krishna has transcendental qualities. He has transcendental pastime. He has transcendental emotions. He has transcendental relationships. And to not mix the qualities, the activities, and personality or relationship of the Lord with our material qualities, not material characteristic, material relationship, material activities, to not mix the two. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to read again the text 1 to chapter 8 of Canto 2 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Rajovacha Brahmana Chodito Brahman Gunakyane Gunashyacha Yasmai Yata Praha Narado Devadarshanaha. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? The last question, before whom did he speak, is going to be revealed in the rest of the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, thank you for listening. Is there any comments, realization, question, challenges? Yes, Len?
Yeah, just have thank you, Malini, for a wonderful class. I just would like to comment that I seem to be in a great position to receive transcendental knowledge for two reasons. Number one, I'm old. And I don't, and it's a blessing, like you said. So I hadn't thought about it as being a blessing before. So it is a blessing because I'm not, I'm not getting the satisfaction from the material world that I used to. And number two, reason why I'm ideally situated to receive some transcendental knowledge is because I have no spiritual knowledge to unlearn. I'm basically like a tabla rasa because I rejected all religious teachings when I was 13 years old, and I didn't want to have anything to do with any organized religion. And my pursuits in other spiritual areas never really came to much fruition because they remained pretty superficial. I explored Tibetan Buddhism, I explored Native American philosophy, and now I'm still exploring a lot of New Age methods, but nothing really is taking hold. So I'm ideally situated to receive bona fide transcendental knowledge. So I feel doubly blessed. Thank you.
I appreciate your innocence and candidness in saying all that, and yes, you're really well situated. You are in the mature stage of your life where the senses kind of get subdued, like old snake, like Prabhupada compares the senses with snake with full of venom, and maybe all snakes, their venom is not as strong, so the senses are not as agitated, and even if they are limited in their ability to be satisfied anyway. And so that's a blessing, and it's an asset, and you are realizing, yes, it's a blessing and an asset. And another asset for you and blessing is that you don't feel like you have absorbed too much of knowledge that could be detrimental, like sometimes Prabhupada say about being scarred for life. Sometimes there is some knowledge we may absorb in so-called spiritual sectors that are really damaging, polluting, that can create wound, like spiritual wound, or being scarred for life, and you're feeling like, no, I'm not scared. I'm just like, I have explored, but I haven't integrated anything. So there is so much more space for me to integrate the real thing. And that transcendental knowledge from a bona fide disciplic succession given to us by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada gives so much. He gives all this lecture. We can hear his lecture every day. Is that wonderful? Like we can hear his transcendental sound vibration every single day. We are so fortunate. So fortunate, amazingly fortunate. So same thing for me. I didn't have anything to unlearn, because I was kind of really ignorant, spiritual ignorance for most of my life. Even I was a seeker, but I was not hatching on anything. I was not hatching on anything. But when I met Srila Prabhupada, when I met the teaching from Srila Prabhupada coming down from Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's movement and Srila Prabhupada's movement, then I naturally hatched into it, because it really resonated with my heart, resonated with something really, really deep within myself. Yeah.
What really worked for me was the Maha Mantra, because I wanted to chant a mantra that I could really stick with, and it really resonated with me, So like in Tibetan Buddhism, there are different mantras you're chanting too. And nothing really adhered or struck me as wanting to, this is it, I found it, But honestly, the Maha Mantra is what really attracted me to Krishna consciousness, or has kept me involved in it, even though I don't, I'm working on my sadhana, and it's not where it needs to be, but still the mantra is still there. So the Maha Mantra beat all the other mantras out in the mantra competition.
Mantra competition, there is no competition. In mantra competition, there is no competition. That really, when you got in contact with the transcendental Golokira Premadana Harinam Sankirtan, the transcendental sound vibration directly coming from Goloka, then something in you resonated, and right away you knew that's my mantra, and it is there. It's my mantra, and that's a song of my soul. That's the song of my soul, associating with God, associating with Krishna, and that's what I want. And it's a sambonam of whole mantra. It's a sambonam of everything we can. It's a desire tree. The Maha Mantra is a desire tree. Everything is contained with the Maha Mantra. Krishna's pastime, Krishna's knowledge, everything is contained within Krishna's mantra, and you're so attached to that Maha Mantra.
Yeah. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. It didn't really stick.
It didn't really stick. Yeah, it's not. It's something. It's not. It doesn't resonate so much with the song of your soul.
Yeah. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. Okay, but what does the Lord look like? I don't know. Oh, wait, the Torah, the book is, we're praying to the book, but there's no image, there's no personal God, there's no image of God. The book is God. Not so great. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for
Hare Krishna.
sharing. Hare Krishna.
I'm inspired by Len's realizations. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Did you hear that, Len? Dear Govinda said, I am inspired by Len's realization. Hare Krishna. Anandini, you wanted to share something?
Yes, I also feel inspired by Len's like shift in perspective and seeing old age as like a blessing and good fortune. And I feel inspired to share a good fortune I discovered this week. And it's so related to what you were sharing, how Srila Prabhupada gives responses in his books. And if we don't get it from the books, he also finds other ways to speak to us. And so my process, a personal process, is around coming to a place of more like non-violence, ahimsa. And I was contemplating on that and working on it in our 5 principles coaching. And then I was reading in Srimad Bhagavatam, and actually I was reading a verse which was about this, and I didn't even get it until Dear Govinda shared the same verse, and I thought, oh, that's the verse I read. So I read it again, and there's a lot about non-violence. And then also he mentions about like saving animals or not, like don't send animals to the slaughterhouse. And on that day, my daughters came to me and said, Mom, we want to do our project now. And since months they want to do a project where they save rabbits from the slaughterhouse. So they want to like build a big stable and collect donations and get help. And I always like I didn't like the project. For me, I only saw lots of work, lots of responsibility.
It's like overwhelming.
That's what I saw. And that day when they came again and I looked, they created a flyer and it says, we save rabbits from the slaughterhouse. It was like getting the same message again. And so I felt inspired to support them in their project, as that's something I can do to contribute towards nonviolence, towards ahimsa. And I said, okay, I'm ready. I support you. And on that day, they sent out the flyer to some friends, and it turned out it was the day of giving. I didn't know, but it was the day of giving. And lots of people were asking for donations. And within 3 days, they got like money for half of their project. And and I realized everything's here. It's just about me getting it or being ready to see it and receive it.
Yeah. So it's being so serendipitous, like everything is aligning with your own art desire to focus on non-violence and your own process around that. And then all of a sudden, like having that relationship with that verse, and specifically that part of the verse about saving animals from slaughterhouse and not sending animals to slaughterhouse. And then that gives you the strength to let go of those feeling of feeling overwhelmed is too much and all that, and then kind of support Anouk and Noah to go forward in doing the service their heart wants to do, and then trusting that, okay, well, whatever the manpower, the finances, everything is going to come. They want to do that, and I heard from the Bhagavatam I'm supposed to do that, and they help you to trust on a deeper level that, okay, like that's a service I want to support, and that's a way for me to be guided towards participating in nonviolence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it said in that verse also that nonviolence is so important for spiritual life, for spiritual progress. And so to support, so anyone who supports them in their project is also contributing to nonviolence and prepares the ground for spiritual growth, spiritual realization.
It's serving you, and it's and you can know how, because they are fully engaged in nonviolence, and their heart is getting purified from that. And then everybody else that they engage to help them, also their heart getting purified, and like increasing the ability, increasing the potential for them to open themselves to spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like all win-win everywhere.
And the good fortune, it was here since a few weeks, and I just didn't get it. That was too.
It was something, there was consideration for you, the real consideration of time, energy, resources, and then with the help of Srimad Bhagavatam, you were able to let go of those consideration and trust.
Yeah.
And that's why the Bhagavatam came.
Yeah.
Thank
you
for sharing. Hare Krishna. Gajendra? Where is Gajendra? Yeah, Gajendra, you raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm appreciating as well, my appreciation of how we receive encouragement or messages or inspiration or instruction from Sri Guru and Krishna. And I'm just appreciating a variety of aspects to it. In some ways, maybe it would be easy if like Krishna just appeared in my living room and just spoke to me in English. That might be clear, but not only am I not qualified for that, but I feel like it would also take away choice to some degree. So I think in some way I appreciate, messages like maybe during the course of a day, something like out of the blue, 3 people will mention the same thing to you. It's kind of a message that is being arranged, but it's also a little more not so imposing, but nonetheless it's there. And I guess I'm appreciating that aspect, because maybe there's a time, or even atheists will say, well, God should appear before me or be more direct or something like that. But I think that it's that there's a niceness to the subtlety. There's a niceness to the subtlety.
Yeah, you appreciate.
It allows more choice, allows more opportunity for me to step into it. And I'm also appreciating that these messages are important, even if Krishna is wanting to be imposed. And sometimes there's a way that things in material nature or gross matter, or just things in this world, have a spiritual counterpart. And I've often thought about the internet, which was originally created in universities, but the main thrust of it was for military communication. Like in the old days, in the battlefield, the communication, they'd have a line, they'd literally run a single wire, and if the enemy could cut that wire, the communication channel was lost. The whole idea of the internet is the message, like when you send a message, it actually spreads out in different packets and goes through all these different channels. And the idea of that is the communication can't stop because it has all these different pathways. And I've often thought that, you know, Krishna communicates like that. There's an important message that we need to get, the message of Krishna consciousness, the message, and that this important message will find its path to us. You know, the part of us that's sincere to want to receive the message, this message will come to us. And the parts of us that maybe want to block or don't feel ready, the message has all these different ways. And so I've actually often felt like the internet is kind of a gross example. So it's like the message will come from the book, or if you won't read the book, it'll come from somebody else's, you know, somebody will say something, something will happen in your life. But these important messages will come to us if we just have a little desire, a little bit of openness.
Yeah, it's a qualification of the hearer, like Srila Prabhupada speak about the qualification of the hearer. And if we are ready to receive, to believe, like, let's say that all the books were burned, like in Russia, no books, or the books are burned, and there is no books around, no way to listen to Prabhupada's classes, that the knowledge, transcendental knowledge, that's all, you know, that the pure devotees are praying for us to receive, because really it's the mercy of the pure devotee who wants the conditioned soul to receive that knowledge. And of course, in reciprocation with the desire of the conditioned soul and deepest desire and sincerity, then that knowledge, like you say, is going to find a way. Even if we were in a desertic island with no books and nothing, that if that sincerity is there, and through the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy, the grace of a pure devotee, spiritual master in disciplic succession, that will find a way. Like the birds are going to speak.
Yeah.
To speak with us, also from within, like the Chaitya Guru. There's always the form of Krishna as a Guru inside the heart, was giving us transcendental knowledge. So yes, and then for us to be in that magic and trust that magic of receiving knowledge in accordance to our deepest desire and sincerity.
Yeah, I'd like to just tell one tiny personal story because I find it kind of amusing. There was a spiritual book that I wanted to read. I heard about it, you know, it's Krishna conscious, and I had some feeling and I was thinking about it for some time. I'm interested in this book. And it was there, but I wasn't quite acting on it. And it was a book that was important for me to read. It was an important book, and I had this feeling, but I wasn't acting on it. And I went out to the Ichitukni River, the head springs, one time and was swimming. And on my way back to the parking lot, there was a car that was leaving. And the car like pulled out and pulled away, and they had left something on the roof of the car, and it fell off on the ground. And I couldn't catch the people because by the time but I went over there and picked it up, and it was the book that I wanted to read. That was a very powerful book for me to read.
Yes. So you can see Krishna fulfill our desire, and even more so, like he fulfilled all our desire, material desire too. And Krishna fulfill even more so our spiritual desire. When we cultivate spiritual desire and we are sincerely having spiritual desire, then there is so many forces in the universe and beyond that are canvassing together to help us fulfill that spiritual desire.
And the last thing I want to say about sort of these messages or the way events happen, that this is an aspect of Parameshwara. of the Lord being the controller, controlling everything in detail, arranging these places and timings and happenings. And that it's a very beautiful aspect, because, if a person wants to be rebellious to God, if a person wants to be God, then the idea of God being the controller is a point of conflict and struggle and unhappiness. So this idea of control by God is not so good. But for the person who has a nice relationship with God, who wants to have a beautiful, loving exchange with the Lord, then the idea that the Lord has this unlimited power as the supreme controller is very, very beautiful.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm just appreciating how this, depending on one's idea or relationship, it can be really horrible that God is the supreme controller and I'm not, or it can be wonderful, like having an incredibly wealthy, beautiful, powerful, attractive husband who can just do so much for you or something like that. Not that that's the motivation, but it's just interesting perspective about it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your sharing, Ajahn Prabhu. Hare Krishna. One more.
Yeah, I kind of, I sense that we all shared about, like, in a sense, power of clear intention, maybe, like how powerfully Krishna can manage everything to bring us where we desire to be, either in our spiritual path or in this lifetime. And I heard this like concert once. I think that was in Saffron, like a few months ago. How we have like our like really positive desires that we would like Krishna to fulfill and engage us in the service and be more, spiritually in integrity, but simultaneously we have our like self-defeating beliefs, and that the self-defeating beliefs are many times they're like more powerful, like Krishna or something will like fulfill these self-defeating beliefs rather than the clear intention. And I was wondering, why is it that, like, why, I don't know, why the self-defeating beliefs are so powerful, even more than the clear intention. That's kind of what I heard, like the concept.
Well, okay. Thank you. Okay, we have our spiritual desire. Krishna is waiting for us to have spiritual desire. And the whole process of Krishna consciousness, everything is really about developing spiritual desire. Like the Viraj River, the river between the material and spiritual world, where the banyan tree of the material banyan tree, like the real banyan tree is reflected. It's into a material banyan tree. The 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a Viraj River. And the Viraj River is a desire. It's based on desire. Spiritual life is based on desire. Yeah. It's all based on desire. So a lot of the teaching, a lot of the process is there to support us to develop spiritual desire. And spiritual desire. So we have, our level of sincerity about our spiritual desire. And then parallel to that, we also have our level of sincerity and with our material desire. And our material desire do often lead us to misery, and miseries that led us to want to believe things about ourselves that are not true, like the self-defeating belief, and we want to believe that. And those self-defeating beliefs, they get their power from us. I don't see them getting power from an outer source. It's a place of personal responsibility, personal responsibility to see that, yeah, I can give power to those lies. I can give power to illusion, that I'm going to be happy if I get life exactly the way I want. I can give power there. And of course, the force of illusion is very, very strong. It's Mama Maya. So it's Krishna's illusion. So we cannot fight with Krishna's illusion. You know, any energy of Krishna is going to be stronger than us. Still, Krishna is always giving us free will to choose. So am I absorbed in my self-defeating belief and in such giving them power? Or am I giving power to those spiritual desire and not needing to counteract even the self-defeating belief? In fact, it's very conducive in spiritual life to feel fallen, to feel unable, to feel incapable, to feel like a fool. But the self-defeating beliefs are accompanied with, I shouldn't be those things. That's why they are self-defeating, because they are defeating us from really authentically connecting with the truth. Mm-hmm. And the truth is that, in a sense, I'm infinitesimal. I'm very small. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in a material world condition, in the limitation of my vehicle, then I'm even more limited. Mm-hmm. Like that. So the self-defeating beliefs are the counteraction of us wanting to be God, really. Mm-hmm. It's the other side of that. Because we can transform our self-defeating belief in reality. And then it's not low self-worth anymore, it's just humility.
Like the more we resist the self-defeating belief, from what you say, I understand that it's I forgot the word you used. That's what makes it true, or no?
Well, we resist them because we want to be God. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the moment we realize, well, yeah, in fact, I can go into humility instead. Mm-hmm. That's true that I'm not capable of much. What are we capable of? And in one sense, we're not capable of much. And in another sense, when we realize like we are part and parcel of Krishna, our power is unlimited, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when we give power to the self-defeating belief, it's really because we cultivate that desire to be God, to be that Superman, Superwoman, like that. And then we have the self-defeating beliefs that want to take us down, tear us down. Mm. Yeah. So I don't know where you heard that it's Krishna, but in general, I tend to take Krishna out of my personal choices. Mm. I found that's more helpful in spiritual life. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's kind of like I can become victim of the material energy, and I become victim of Krishna. And then I stay the victim anyway, helpless victim. And, of course, our potency is limited, but we are not helpless victim. We have a lot of power to get out of the material energy, to get out of the illusion of that I'm God, that transform into the self-defeating belief that want to convince me that like I'm God, but look at myself and then criticize me like that. It's just different side of the same coin.
And to clarify, as you said, we have a lot of power. That power comes from developing intention. And so, as you said, so just to clarify, so I'll speak I statements. So I don't have clear intention for spiritual life. And so it's not like I have such clear, deep intention for Krishna consciousness, but why isn't Krishna reciprocating with that? No, we can look at my actual intention by looking at my life. And so, so Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, they're wanting us to develop that intention a lot more than we want it. Hare Krishna.
And they give us everything to develop that intention, to like move into desiring and desiring and desiring more and more, in conjunction with the material energy. She has her space and she has her service and she's powerful and she really helps us. by smashing us. When we are in illusion, she just slapped us on our face. And then when she slapped, we can go into self-defeating belief, like, wow, I'm not God. And or we can go into like, wow, thank you. I was sleeping and you woke me up.
Like Lynn was sharing, material energy, body is experiencing what's called old age. So then he's deepening his intention for a genuine spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
How does that sound? You don't look very satisfied.
I was just trying to recollect again what you said around the more we give power to self-defeating beliefs and less we accept it, then we are like bound to fulfill the self-defeating beliefs. Just trying to understand it. Yeah.
Well, the more power we give, the more we believe in them.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, if we believe the self-defeating belief, we will act upon them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like we do have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we there is believing the self-defeating belief, like believing I'm God, but why is God treated like that way? It's kind of victimy. And there is believing like, yeah, I am helpless here. I am powerless. I am helpless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm incapable. And Krishna, do whatever you want with me.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like the difference between humility and humiliation.
Exactly. Exactly. Entourage Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.